Right, folks, we're here, believe it or not, and we have technical difficulties. I'm not Loren Meadows. He's the handsome one. I'm Buddy Martin. I'm just sitting there pinching for Brendan. Didn't even have time to get the name line up there, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. I think I see David Whitley and I see Rob Browne in the orange and blue room. Let's hit the music and start it. And Loren, you say welcome your guests one at a time, and we'll see that to get this thing while Brendan Martin probably won't get in during the show. He's having internet problems. So stand by. We're going to dig this out and make this thing happen, even though it looks like it probably won't tonight. What a day. So, all right. How you doing, Loren? Okay?
Oh, yeah. Let's get it started. Tell it like it is.
Started me so I can find all this stuff that Brendan Martin usually gets. We'll get it on here and go there. I think I see the open down here. Let's hit this and see what we got. And we're on our way to another edition of the Buddy Martin Show with Loren Meadows. So stay tuned. You know it's going to be good always if Loren's involved. Here we go.
For Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening. Welcome to the program. The hurricane did not blow us away, thankfully, and we know many people were thinking about who were suffering through this. We think about our good friends in Tampa, especially. It's been a tough week, but we're here. Loren's here. I'm going to duck out of this thing and let Loren run his show. Got a couple of buddies waiting there for you, Loren, if you want to bring them in.
Yes, sir. We're going to bring in David Whitley from the Gainesville Sun. Say good evening to him.
All right, let's go get David. I get to do a little show with David. You just don't get to do the show with David. Good evening, David.
Good evening, buddy. You're doing a fine job being the executive producer.
I couldn't get my name down right. I was called into duty from the bullpen at the last second. So,
That's
but
what
we're
happens
here. David, it's good to see you. I'll turn the keys over
to
the
boss. You got to roll your sleeves up sometime. You know that's what it is. So,
yeah.
Call the legend in for the relief.
I'm ducking out for a minute, you guys. I'll be back, David, and good to see you again. All right.
All right, buddy. Have a good evening.
We appreciate you guys coming on with us. A little technical difficulty, but we want to say good evening to Tommy Seal, Buck Wade, Cindy Neesmith, Michael Burton, Chris Wheeler, Toby Permitter, Michael Burton, and my good friend Nat Blaylock as we kind of start the show. So, Mr. Whitley, how you doing this evening?
Very well, Mr. Meadows. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Got back late Sunday night from Knoxville, and I wasn't too happy. And, in this business, sometime we had to take the emotion out of it and just look at what we saw. And I think what we saw was an energized defense. And I'm going to just put it out there. I think I wrote it in my article. I think the better team lost that football game. And as much as people want to talk about the star power of Tennessee and Nico Iamaleava, finally learned how to say
Very
that
good.
right. Well, yeah, there you go. But, I think there was a game that Florida was extremely prepared. But once again, it's just a football team that seems to, under Billy Napier, get in their own way and, probably cost themselves at least 17 points on offense at the first half of the game. And it just looked eerie after that. And I just had that feeling, as somebody who's watched the game for quite some time, I've seen football games like this. And when you don't capitalize on your opportunities, particularly on the road, it's just something that the Gators just kind of fought through. And, we saw some positive things in the second half. But I think if they could have seized those opportunities in the first half, I think they would have been in good shape.
We all seen it where a team gets in the old red zone and comes away with nothing or 3 points, and then they do it again. And you can almost just bet. If they probably do have an in-game betting thing on that, where all right, how many points will they score now, and or will they lose? You just you get that eerie feeling. Oh yeah, this will come back to haunt you at some point. And they had when you go into the red zone 4 times and come away with 3 points, that's about as badly as you can do. I mean, ideally four trips down means 28 points, or mediocre you get 14 if you get something like that. But that just didn't capitalize. Some of it was bad play calling. I think some of it was just good defense. I mean, the strip sack, or the strip basically on first and goal. That was just a great play by James Pierce, the Tennessee linebacker, went and took the ball away. And it was just Tennessee's defensive line just blew up Florida's offensive line on that play. I mean, Mertz had nowhere to go.
Right.
So that's just that was. I mean, that you can't second guess that call. Certainly, people have had a field day second guessing the 4th and 1 call. Earlier.
Right. Well, I think going back to the fumble and the 4th and 1 play, the only thing that I would say about the 4th and 1 play is at that time it looked like that, at least in that particular situation, the offensive line of Florida was actually starting to impose their will a little bit. So with Lagway in the game, it almost seemed like, get him under center. He's 240 pounds, probably squats over 500 pounds. Let him go ahead just to kind of take some of the simple guesswork out of it. In a situation like that, the noise, the things like that, then they kind of come back with that play. And yes, maybe Lagway should have said, hey, I'm going to get this first down no matter what. But it just seemed to be, once again, you put variables into things on the road, number one. And then number two, to me, there's always conversations that need to be had. And for instance, I think if Graham Mertz says, hey, we got stopped on first down, I'm not going to push for those extra yards. I'm down. I'm going down. It wasn't until that second effort. And in your mind, you got to think, okay, we got 4 more cracks at this thing, probably at least 3 more. And then we kick a field goal and at least we're up, 6-0. And it was just one of those situations where, once again, it's like snake bit, because somewhere in there, that communication is not being, is not being pushed on to the kids and the players. And so I won't say kids, but the players, even though they're kids to me, the players of, hey, we got to be sharp here, and we got to cherish the football. It's like a point guard sometimes. You got to cherish that basketball late in games and in big games, and there's certain things you just can't do. And to me, it's maybe it's a curse or something, but it's been this kind of thing with Billy Napier football teams the entire time he's been here. This always something. And then we'll get to the I got a pretty easy explanation for the field goal and the 12 people, which I Billy Napier's explanation on that one, once again, defies what you hear from the high school coaches. You go up to Newberry, up the street a little bit, and get a better explanation than we got there. But what I wanted to hit on is, a couple guys said you asked a really good question at the presser. I didn't get to go back and listen to the presser. Unfortunately, I had some things to do for work and that kind of thing. But what did you ask, and kind of explain what the answer was? Obviously, the question made an impact.
My question was, well, one of, but I'm sure the one that they're talking about was does the play calling that he does and having that occupy his mind detract from his ability to just run the show on the sideline, avoid things like that 4th and or that field goal situation, run things a little bit cleaner, and is he just too distracted? I mean, is there trying to spin too many plates doing that? His answer was, of course, no. As we expect, he said, if anything, it keeps him more plugged into what's going on.
Okay.
And so if that's his explanation, but I think that he will give up play calling. When it's like Charlton Heston with the guns, when they probably his cold dead fingers, off the barrel
Right.
with the NRA. Although and that's another one of the mysteries of the play. Is it strictly him, Russ Callaway combo, whatever? I don't. That's something of a mystery. But he's actually heavily involved in that. But again, you look at how it's done in so many other places. You have offensive coordinators or specific play callers who do it, and if he just common sense sort of tells you that if you're the CEO and you have all these people under you, when one's assigned to this, one's assigned to that, and that's the way most companies run. But this company runs differently, and the CEO handles something that every other company or most other companies have a position for. It makes you question now. Again, it's an ongoing thing, and
Right.
and he's not going to give it up, but I just can't help but think that it would be beneficial. The net benefit would be if you had a guy whose sole job is to do that, call the plays, concentrate on it.
Right.
And Billy has a hand in it, listening to the headset. But also just maybe it wouldn't help, but I can't help but think it would, just being able to all right, well, we're not lining up right, whatever, just.
Well, and once again, you look at a fifth-year quarterback and you get the big interception, you get ready to go in again, and then you get a timeout that ends up costing you to be in that Mayday situation. Yeah. It's like, can we get these are plays that have been run through walkthrough and all those things. You got experienced people out there, people that have played a lot of football, and you can't get lined up. Now, as far as the field goal, so he continuously says this was a substitution situation. I get that, except for the fact you had 12. So as the holder, I was the holder in high school, all 4 years in college. You go out there. I always called my snapper Fat Boy. Whoever the snapper was, he was Fat Boy. And I knew we had the kicker there. I didn't know the kicker's name because nobody knows the kicker. But, Fat Boy, me, kicker. That's 3 of us. And then I looked to my right.
It's like a nice musical group. Fat Boy and me.
Fat Boy, me, and the kicker. Right. Yeah. And then there's 3 of us to the right. Wing. That's 4. 3 of us, 4. Pretty easy, right? And I'm sure they know how to count to 11 in Australia too. So to me, those are things that are consistently harped on when you do the kicking game and things like that, and you talk about substitutions. So, and it would be different if the guy that came in was on his right where he really couldn't see him. But he went all the way across the formation and lined up on the opposite side of the formation, which maybe they would have ran out of time. But to kick it with 12, it's just those kind of things that make no sense. And then his reasoning behind it is always like, oh, well, that's easily explained. It really isn't. And I think that's what people are starting to grow tired of, is it's really not an explanation. If you want to second guess 4th down, I know somebody said, well, we should have been aggressive and went for 2. It never should have came to that, because they should have been up at least 17-0 at the half. And then the game's over, because I think they were the better football team. So talking about going for 2, they never should have been in that situation. Mm-hmm. So we're here at this point, and once again, it's consistently, from a football standpoint, it just doesn't make any sense. Basic football fundamentals are continuously absent in this situation, in these games, and it's games that they should be winning. They're the better football team. If you had to look at both quarterbacks, who would you have taken once after what you saw Saturday night?
Oh yeah, it's funny how DJ Mertz, was obviously ahead, but DJ Lagway looks ahead of Nico, even though he's a year behind.
Exactly.
And I think Nico's sort of been exposed the last 3 weeks, that he is not all that.
And he may be heard it
eventually, but he's playing like a 9th grader out there a lot of times.
Right. And then somebody said that Dylan Sampson was the best running back that Tennessee's had since Travis Henry, someone said. And I thought all 3 backs at Florida were at least comparable. You look at the numbers. I mean, you look at the defensive backs, you look at the way Florida played on defense, minus the 11 to 12 defensive linemen that Tennessee
Yeah.
kept shuffling in. I mean,
Yeah.
they play a ton of guys up front. But at linebacker, I thought the Florida linebackers were as good, if not better. I thought in the secondary, they played a really good game outside of Jordan Castell, who, had a couple big misses, but
Mhm.
he'll learn. The big thing was, it's just, one of those things where I mean, it's one of those things where, like, the better it continuously shows and rears its head. So, I mean, I don't understand. And when does this start to become something that he says, this is not good enough anymore?
Yeah. Well, the 12 men on the field, I'm still not sure what happened, because after the game, he was saying, well, it was we had a guy injured and he didn't quite get off the field in time. But Kevin Brockway, who works for me at the Sun, he saw video of the play, and there were 12 men lined up when anybody trying to get off the field.
Correct. That's exactly right.
And so, I mean, so you just wish that there was some clarity there, so we wouldn't. But I mean, we know there's a screw up, so just specify what it was. I mean, maybe you don't have to tell us who the player, who the player, if you want to protect that. I mean, no, I don't think it matters at this point. But just so it wouldn't there's no reason to try to cover anything up at this point, because the penalties just tell us how and why. Just if anything else, it would restore a little more faith in you that you're not being evasive about these things. Right. And the shame of it is that if you look at how the team, you said, it was prepared to play. And I think the game plans were good. If you'd have told, I mean, they came within, a hair's breadth of beating, the ninth team on the road, in a hostile environment, all that. I mean, the defense is improved leaps and bounds the last couple of weeks. And all these things that you're saying, they got to get better. They have gotten better at that. I think, that Billy had them ready to play and all these things, but it's all overshadowed because in fact, like I have to grade things after the game immediately, offense, defense, blah, 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 and coaching. And I gave him a C, and I figured, how could you give him a C? He blew it, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, if he got an F for that, what if they'd have gotten beaten 55-0? So he's getting no credit for all the good things that the coaching, him and the staff did to get that team ready, because the team was ready and they had the plan down. But people just see right now it's all negative, no pot. People just see the bad, and a lot of it was because if there's one thing that they couldn't do this year was have too many on the field, one of those type things,
right?
Because that was the
excuse me,
big deal, almost an overblown deal last year. Started at Utah. Well, you blew it, and that sort of stamped it, and then it was reinforced to the nth degree when at Arkansas, and so I mean, any other type of penalty would have been not okay, but more palatable. But that was just like, oh man, how could this happen again? And they have, it's funny, until that play, special teams was the shining object, and one of the real stories of this team, because the special teams hadn't screwed up yet, but this was the worst way to screw up, because it just sort of exhumes all the ghosts from seasons past.
Right. And it takes you back to that Arkansas game where I think we all were like, really? I mean, this happened. And Buck Wade brings up a good point, and I think that's something to be, you are in a 2-minute situation. You probably should have 2 plays called. You should have 2 plays called in the huddle, or however you want to do it after the timeout. And and I think it points to what you were asking, Mr. Whitley, is he consumed with too much that you're not able to think more than 1 play ahead? And I think that's where, I think they look at a situation where, I think they were prepared. I think the roster was better. I think top to bottom, Florida was the better football team. And, what and even sitting there talking to some of the Tennessee people in the press box and things like that at halftime, I think they were even almost like, wow, Tennessee dodged a bullet, because it should have been a game where, and it wasn't like Tennessee. I mean, there were times where the Florida receivers were catching the ball in space, and the Tennessee defense didn't want any part of them. And we saw when the running backs were running, they really weren't trying. I mean, this was a football team that was starting to impose its will on the road against Tennessee, and it just didn't happen. And I'm not sure that I'm going to make a bold statement before we get off here this evening, but I'm not sure that. I mean, it's just starting to become the theme with Coach Napier, and I think you even saw it after the game with some of the support staff. They're just fatigued by these near misses. And what is it that Coach Napier could do? Because you could take the PR stuff out of it, except for in the press conferences. But what can he do to get this thing? I mean, to get the narrative here, or is he just sliding down the slide slowly, and then after the Florida State game, they'll make a decision and see what happens? Because at this point, it seems like that's the way it's going.
Yeah.
And I'm not and I'm not publicly saying he should be fired. I'm not even here to. That's not. I'm not even going to make it. Well, I'm going to say something about that, but not saying he should be, fired. But
That won't be the headline tomorrow. Loren Meadows calls for Billy's head.
no, there won't be. Absolutely.
Well, the thing he can do, and I'm sure Rob will hello, Rob.
Yeah, we welcome in Rob Browne from SEC Sideline.
One way to do it: you get win a game or two or three. Yeah. Yeah. That's the only way.
Right.
And it starts at Kentucky, which looks like the only winnable game in the next till you get to FSU.
Right. Yeah. Rob, did you get to check out the game? Did you watch it a little bit?
I mean, I'm married to Evolve for life, and cousin Mark's got 10 season tickets up there and a gigantic tailgate. And look, I talked to a couple of Tennessee players, former players, last night at the Touchdown Club, Dan Williams and Malcolm Rawls, and they both went to East High School in Memphis, played at Tennessee. 5-year players, guys. They actually stayed at the same school for 5 years.
How about that?
I mean, and Dan was a first-round draft pick of the Cardinals, big defensive lineman. And we talked about it, and I said, what do you think about Tennessee? Nico said, you're right. This is his third SEC game, but it's the fourth straight game Tennessee's failed to go over 200 yards passing. Mm-hmm. Nico's struggling. You got to talk to my friend Vince Ferrara up in the press box from 99.1 The Sports Animal. He'll be on tomorrow with us. He's a Tampa native. But the Florida thing, it's mental. And David hit on it and you hit on it. They ain't the only school. Auburn, there are plenty of them. They've forgotten how to win. But I think the real thing is it's hard with guys coming and going so fast to build an identity, a culture with guys that stop by for a cup of coffee, spring practice, pick up some money, and go to the next opportunity. That I think that's a real – I don't think Billy Napier is dumb. I think he's struggling. But I do think if you're changing coaches every 2 or 3 years, who you got better? You don't sell stocks out of a portfolio unless you got something better to buy. Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to sit in cash, it better be very, very short term. That's the tough thing about it. Again, you look at the Florida program, you ought to hear what the Ole Miss people are saying. I can't say it on the air. They're 1-2 in the conference. And they've got their 2 mulligans out of the way. So it's the world we live in. We created it. We got to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, one of the things that with Coach Napier is a lot of times it's just inexplainable. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing out there that's kind of hovering over him is from everybody that knows him in the past and those that work with him, what's the one thing we hear about him on a consistent basis? How detail-oriented he is, correct?
Yeah. And
then the details are left behind. And I think that's the thing that I think when you talk about everything else, people want to talk about his offense. And I think they're fine offensively from a scheme standpoint, things like that, at least there's some head scratching, but the most head scratching is the fact that even when he's got it going, something always seems to happen. I mean, you think about it. They dominated the Ole Miss game, but late in the second quarter, Ole Miss puts together
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State, excuse me,
Right.
puts together a 4-play drive in like 45 seconds. And it's like, how? What? There's always something, even though I don't hold as much just because I thought the UCF game was a game that he had to have, even the UCF game, no points in the second half. Or at least 3 points, excuse me. 3 points in the second half, right?
No, I think
Or
it
none.
was. Did they get 3? I don't know. Whatever it was, it was not nearly as many as the first half.
So,
Yeah.
excuse me. So no points in the second. They missed
That's right.
a
Because he
field
missed
goal.
a field goal. I
Yeah.
think.
So all of those things, and it's just like, once again, this person that is so detail oriented, there always seems to be some hanging detail out there that it's reminiscent of like a bad high school football team, not a team that should be working towards building a championship program, Mr. Whitley.
Mm-hmm. And you ask him about the issues, and you point out, and he says, "You got to own it." And I give he owns it, but you got to do something, So, but what do you do about it?
Right.
And we keep waiting to see, and here we are, 30 some odd games in, or approaching 30. I exactly lost count, but we're still not quite seeing that where you have any confidence that he really knows he really has a handle on everything there that he needs to have a handle on.
Right.
And and now we've got a whole new equation coming in without Graham Mertz, who
Right.
in many ways was the security blanket out there.
Right.
Really. And
Absolutely.
and now it's you can paint it. All right, they're going to rally around the kid. He's going to grow up fast. Blah blah blah. But I'm sorry, you saw the other night how the offense downshifted once Mertz got hurt.
Right.
And then credit to him, Lagway, after looking like a freshman, he came up with the big play. So I mean, Bill said he has a way of rising to the occasion. Thing is, the occasion now is here, the big occasion,
right?
And it's got to be all rise, no down,
right? Oh yeah, well,
and there's no doubt they're going to have to change the offense some. I mean, they should, obviously, because he's a different kind of quarterback than him. But we can talk about those ramifications for a while.
Well,
you got no backup now. That's one problem.
We're gonna get to it. Yeah. But before we do, I want to mention our sponsor, Meldon Law, the only official law firm of the Florida Gators. Meldon Law, they won't back down. And for those of you that are interested, they have a promotion going on. They're actually giving away a really nice trip to the game in Jacksonville in a couple of weeks. I think it includes hotel stay, dinner, and some really good seats. So go on, like and subscribe to their Facebook and Instagram, and they have a lot of good things going on in Meldon Law. But obviously, we know they've done a lot for the band and other sports. But Meldon Law has been a partner with the Florida Gators for quite some time, and now they're the official law firm of the Florida Gators. Meldon Law, they won't back down. Rob, before we get into the quarterback situation, kind of put this Tennessee game to bed, people that are frustrated and, I think are kind of have not resigned themselves to the fact that Billy Napier will at least coach, the last 6 games of the season, probably no matter what.
Yeah.
But for those that are frustrated and or with the situation that's sitting out there that you can't keep changing coaches, over and over, I'm going to make this bold prediction. I think that Billy Napier is going to be Florida's head football coach next year. What I don't think is the fact that I don't think that there will be the same staff in place next year. I think that he will keep his job, but I think there's going to be some changes at some integral parts of both the offense and the defense and they're going to allow him to maybe bring some people in that may not be of his tree, so to speak.
Yeah.
Maybe, because the concern is, even if they did go to an interim, they would just be hiring, in a lot of ways, another Billy Napier, because he can be so hands-on to all parts of his organization, which I'm going to just put it out there. That frustrates me. It's a program. It's always been a program. Bear Bryant called it a program. Pat Dye called it a program. Lou Holtz called it a program. Earl Bruce called it a program. It's your program. To say an organization, to me, just puts another stamp and another bullseye on you. Like, you're running this thing like you're some CEO and everybody's dialed in and tightened up. And then you have this quagmire every 2 to 3 games that it's like a head scratcher. So I think if you would call it a program, maybe that would go over better too. But I mean, Rob, you're a financial guy. You deal with those people. A lot of times it's symbiotic to hiring and firing people and putting people in the right places. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm making that statement. That's my bold prediction for this year, is that Billy Napier will be the coach for the 2025 season. But in order to, I think some changes are going to have to be made.
I mean, you cannot be afraid of hiring people that you think might be smarter than you. In fact, you should seize that opportunity, because if you look at the Woodruff philosophy, the Coca-Cola money in Atlanta, you'll have all the success you'll ever dream of in life, as long as you don't mind who gets the credit if you're running an organization. And we've got a lot of programs right now, Florida and Auburn are 2 of them, with crappy teams. And we've flipped the narrative. I'm telling you, what we're dealing with right now with the portal, you can make a team better quickly. But we're going to see, and I'm so excited, in a couple of weeks, Jackie Sherrill, we have him on sidelines a good bit. He's going to be speaking at the Touchdown Club. But he'll tell you, in the late 90s, he went heavy junior college. And that was kind of his undoing. But he had great success 97 to 2000. It's the same thing's going to happen with the portal. If you look what's going on, the better teams are still rooted in their high school recruiting. They may get half a dozen kids out of the portal, but they're very selective. And that's the key. I think that Billy Napier, I think they're thinking too much. And when you're thinking too much, it's like money managers, stock pickers. You don't get anything done. I told a president of a university in the SEC I was talking to last week, I said, we were talking about NIL. He asked me, what's Auburn doing? And I said, look, we talked about it. I said, I'd love to be on a team with you to try to fix this, not a committee. Bunch of blowhards sitting on their asses for 3 hours in a conference room in nice, comfortable chairs with hors d'oeuvres and drinks, a bunch of empty promises. Give me 10 minutes in a round top table with no chairs. I saw it every day. 3rd Ranger Battalion, Fort Benning, Georgia, when I was a TV reporter. It's the greatest thing in the world. It works. Any questions? Okay, let's go. Bam. I just think it's called paralysis by analysis. All you got to do is take a sheet, put the reasons why not. Whichever side outweighs the other one, you make your decision and you move on. Look at Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman has figured this damn thing out. Go hire a mercenary, a trained, mercenary, Bobby Petrino. Let him do his thing. Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson, 2-headed, genius at defensive coordinator, and get out of their way and do what you're good at. That's all you got to do. What do you lack at the University of Florida? I say it over and over and over. You want for nothing.
All right.
There are people who have so much money in life that I've run into. They know the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
All right.
This is how I see it.
It's it. One thing they may lack in this scenario is enough job security for an offensive coordinator to come in and say,
Right.
I want to hitch my wagon to this star.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's a great point.
That was an issue dating back. Well, I don't know when it started, but Will Muschamp, he came in. Nobody questions the guy was a dynamic recruiter, dynamic defensive coach.
Yeah.
His biggest mistake was hiring Charlie Weiss as his first offensive coordinator, who was just a complete flop. They never got it straightened out, and by the time 3 years in, they're still struggling. He wanted to hire a new hot upcoming a good OC, but no OC is going to say, yeah, I think I'm going to move my family to Gainesville, and go there when and it's not by any green bananas, because chances are I'm going.
We won't be here long.
If you're good enough to be that guy, you're good enough to pick a school where you're going to have, hey, I'm sitting there for 2 or 3 years, if not longer. And that's the problem that Billy, I think he faced last year, when he had the turnover, and it's not going. If anything, it's going to be worse this year.
Right.
I mean, you're right. I think that in a perfect world, they would get more fresh blood in there, but it's just going to be hard to do. It's the same thing that they're facing, I think, with recruiting. Is no matter how much you play it up, the elephant. It's not even the elephant in the room. I mean, it is the room that you don't have to tell these kids. Well, but you don't know if Billy's going to be there. And so that's tough to overcome. I mean, and that's why I think to the greatest extent, their recruiting class is like 30th right now. I mean, I think it'll improve some, but there's no way it's going to be where it needs to be if you want to keep up with the proverbial Joneses in the SEC.
Right. Yeah. And I think Michael Burton, talked about, Ryan Day hiring Chip Kelly. I think it speaks to what Mr. Whitley said is Ryan Day ain't going anywhere. Now, he might be on the hot seat if he loses to Michigan again, but in the big scheme of things, he's not going anywhere. He's just not. I think he might be might have one of the highest percentages of active head coaches. I think at one time he was number one, even ahead of he was right there with like Saban and Kirby and those guys. I mean, it's like 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, whatever. That's different. Like you're saying, Mr. Whitley, is not just on offense, if they change defense, who is going to come in this situation? Now, if that is so, then I think it's going to be a long off season because I'm not sure the change is going to be made. And if they stand pat, I just think the narrative, and you tell me, you cover these things on a consistent basis. What is the story? How are we going to tell the story if there's not many changes made and Napier is still the guy? I mean, what does that look like in the middle of the winter prior to spring ball and those guys, or even during spring ball? It's almost like they have to do something. And maybe it's because, and we're going to move on to quarterback. The quarterback is, the key here in a lot of ways, and what they do with him, from a schematic standpoint. And before we go any further, we'll talk about Titan MRI, Gainesville and surrounding areas' newest MRI facility. Once again, you can go in, no insurance. They have the large MRI machines, make you feel comfortable. I know I'm claustrophobic, so that might be something I would look at if I needed an MRI instead of the standard, I call it tube in the trunk, so to speak, with the MRI. But Titan MRI serving Gainesville, Lake City, and surrounding areas. So, I mean, Rob, what does that look like if we're not able to grab somebody, if Florida's not able to grab someone, an up-and-comer, somebody a little different, and what would that look like? Or there has to be changes made, I think, if Napier stays on.
Well, they're due, but there's a couple of offensive coordinators that I like to call the Grim Reaper, Kurt Roper and Scott Loeffler. I mean, it's like having the Grim Reaper as your neighbor sometimes. Scott Loeffler was he was so horrible. I've never seen an offensive coordinator that bad. But the people that endorsed him when he came to Auburn in 2012, I mean, Tom Brady, people like that, you better go out. But David Whitley is right. And this is what happens. Bobby Bowden stayed way too long at Florida State. The longer he stayed there, the harder it was for coaches to uproot their families. When you got 3, 4, 5 kids in school, you're married, That's tough. I got 4 kids. I mean, now they're older, but God, and the longer you're there, the more your rivals are going to use it against you. Like, man, I wouldn't go there. Where it is, he's out of there in a year or two. He bought a big house down in Jupiter, Florida. That's what happened to Nick Saban. And when he couldn't get Bo Davis, this is just my opinion, to come back and coach the defensive line from Texas back to Alabama, within about 6 hours of him being turned down, he checked out. He was done. So Billy Napier, there are coaches that will say, I'm going to let the offensive coordinator run the offense, but they won't. They can't get out of the way. I hadn't seen a better example than Big Sam Pittman. Hell, he loves to go through the drive-thru at Popeyes. I think he went through 2 or 3 times after that Tennessee game because what's going on, he's letting these guys coach. If you've ever worked in an organization and your compliance people, let's be honest. Gus Malzahn had a guy, Rich McGlynn. He's still at Auburn, the compliance director. There was language in his 7-year, $49 million contract, 8-year, $32 million buyout. Any recruiting, anything goes wrong in recruiting, he could be voided. So Alabama and Georgia were out there getting everybody, while Auburn played nice on the sidelines, getting their ass kicked. That's why they're in the worst 4-year cycle since post-World War II. Florida better be careful of doing the same thing. Now there are no rules. Nobody's ineligible. So you better get it right. I mean, again, who are the top coordinators? Ryan Day has lost like 7 or 8 games since he's been head coach at Ohio State. Problem is, he's a jerk. He's a whiner. I mean, he wanted to go after Lou Holtz last year for questioning the toughness of his team. The way he should have handled that is, hey, man, I got a lot of respect for Coach Holtz, and, that kind of fired me up. I've seen coaches do that before. Mm-hmm. He's got very thin skin. Chip Kelly, hey, you saw the movie Tommy Boy when David Spade and Tommy Boy, Chris Farley, went on that sales meeting, and the guy goes, I don't like you. You're a smug, unhappy little man, and I probably never will. That's Chip Kelly. He's an unhappy, smug man. He would have never gone over well at the Gators. I don't know. Y'all got some names. Just let the guys coach when you bring them in. Get out of their way. That's all you got to do. It's not that hard.
Well, and I think whoever they get, and whether it continues to be Billy Napier, they will have, I think, a pretty good dude at quarterback. I mean, I think what I've seen from, and even Saturday night against Tennessee, I mean, the interception, for those of you that is a very, I mean, I heard it from someone on the Tennessee staff that told, after the game we talked, a good friend of mine, Taver Johnson, who has been everywhere, been in the NFL and everything. As a defensive guy, if you're able to put yourself in that middle range, in the flat there, that flat to intermediate, that is one of the hardest reads for a quarterback from a defender type of standpoint. Defensive coaches love to get you in that. And that's why the guys that can make that throw and drop it over the top, which is what Lagway was trying to do. He's trying to take a little bit off of it and get over the top. Kid just jumped up, probably didn't get it up high enough. And it probably wouldn't have been completed, but it was incomplete. Could he have taken the check down there? Yeah, and maybe he'll learn to do that. But that was one of those things that could happen to quite a few people. But now DJ Lagway has the keys to the kingdom, albeit about 6 games, probably too early. And I think the way they were setting things up was the one good thing that they were doing is putting him in a position to be comfortable and not have to have everything on his shoulders to now everything's on him. Is he, I don't necessarily think he's the one that could save or lose Coach Napier his job, but now people are going to get what they wanted. Every play, every down, just like Sanford. And here we go, DJ Lagway show. Mm-hmm. What are we thinking going into Kentucky that could make life hard for quarterbacks, a very physical bunch, but Lagway being able to affect the game with his feet, even on that last touchdown throw, I was literally looking right at DJ Lagway as he fixed his eyes to Chimera DK. And what he did a really good job of, I mean, he kind of, if you watch, he kind of comes out the pocket and then slightly moves to his left, which held that safety just long enough, and obviously threw a strike. And I mean, it was on the money, right in the breadbasket. So you see that ability, and then his ability, obviously, you got to account for him in the run game. But are we thinking that this, even though it may be a little bit premature, could this be something that he latches onto, grabs a hold, they kind of adjust a few of the things they want to do offensively, and then they go from there?
Well, it could be. I mean, you point out that interception. The question will be, did he learn from it? You know, this Saturday when Mark Stoops dials up something, and he will, if that's the same thing, well, you go, wait a minute. And, everything you hear says, yeah, he's a quick study on these kind of things. And he's going to have to be, because, I mean, there will be mistakes. You just don't want them to be continual. And there's going to be growing pains, but will they be so painful that, that they can't overcome whatever they are against a team like Kentucky, where I don't say they should. I wouldn't say this team should beat anybody at this point, but they certainly could beat Kentucky. But in a way, it's bad because it's hard to. What do you make of Kentucky now, other than that they still have a defense,
right?
And we've seen it over and over with Stoops. Is that no matter who Florida has, he can give them fits defensively.
Absolutely.
And so he's just sitting there in his defensive lab thinking, all right, I got this kid with a ton of potential, but also raw. Says, what am I going to do and right? It's a whole different thing when you're the man and you're taking the first snaps and you're the guy. And he did it at Samford, but nobody's going to mistake Samford's defense for Kentucky's. Right. And so I think that's going to be a tough first task for.
Right. Yeah. Rob,
just looking at this league right now, you got Kentucky coming in here. They play Stoops, blue collar football. Florida ought to take them on and run the ball, get physical. You got a quarterback who this is his first year. He's a freshman, but he's so talented. But don't put the game all on his shoulders. But what I see with Florida, Billy Napier is over there during the games. He's like somebody who's still studying when they're taking a final exam. I can tell you, I've lost track of the number of times. In order to get a license to be a financial advisor, you've got to pass the Series 7. It's a 7-hour test. 3 hours, hour lunch, 3 hours. 250 questions. You got to get like a 72 now or a 75. A third of the test is on options. Most people don't even mess with options, but that's why it's in there. So you got to master the most difficult. If you're a runner, learn to love hills, because that's what most people hate. I see Florida, and they're not the only team, but Napier looks like the whole time during the game, he's just thinking and worrying. He's got anxiety. Man, take some gummies or something. I mean, just lighten up. I really see it, because junk in your head, junk out. Positive in, positive out. And Bruce Lee had a great saying, be careful of what you say about yourself. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your mind doesn't know the difference. And the power of psychology, one of the most powerful speakers you will ever hear is a guy named Dr. Kevin Elko. I mean, he spoke to us at Regents Morgan Keegan. My God, he can get you fired up to go to your own execution. But the guys, that's Nick Saban's guy. He brings them in. He brings in people like Marcus Luttrell. I've met Marcus Luttrell and spoke to him. But it's so mental. Everybody has players. And I say this all the time because I hate the end of the Auburn-Florida rivalry. It's still there in everything else, but in football, God, it was great for Auburn. Auburn doesn't recruit Florida like they used to because they don't play the Gators every year. But I just think there's too much thinking going on versus reacting. How many times have y'all both heard when you're a freshman, everything is so fast? And as you start learning, everything slows down. I think the Florida guys, and this is just my take, don't look like they're having any fun. They're working their butts off, and they're losing these close games, that tells me it's not as much physical as it is more mental than physical. Because
Absolutely.
you can look at Florida, it's like going through bluegrass country in Kentucky. There's a few thoroughbreds out there if you'll just look out the window.
Right.
And I think those guys are thinking too much. And damn it, put the fun back in the game again.
Right.
If I'm the coach, that's what I do.
Right. And I'm going to throw this out there for a couple of things. I'm going to say something. So I was, like I said, I was in the end zone when DK caught the pass, and I got to commend myself as a Florida fan for most of my life. I held it together pretty good. I was professional. I kept it very press-like.
Hey, professional. I love that.
As DK passed me, I wanted to get my 5 and everything. I kind of was stoic. My boy Austin Barber came by, kind of gave me a nod. I held it, which was kind of cool. So I held it together. But Greg Jones pointed that out. I got to see Greg and meet him in Knoxville. That was pretty good. We appreciate Greg listening. I also got to see my boy Greg Upton, who's also a big fan of the show. Not a James Franklin fan and definitely not a Billy Napier fan right now, but it was good to see Greg as well. But now we got Lagway. And like you said, I mean, I think whatever he is, I think he's very much like Billy Napier. They're both stoic. I spent some time with DJ at different functions, things like that. Very quiet, very introverted. But like you said, now it's go time. And the situation where you have this freshman and he's out there and he's gonna see everything thrown at him. And I think Mr. Whitley brought up a good point, is how quick does he learn from his mistakes and things like that. In my opinion would be, when you're unsure, take off. Keep it simple. Take off when you got to go, and you go. I mean, I think that would be the best thing. And if I had to give Billy Napier any advice, he needs is sick 'em plays. And what I mean by sick 'em is you turn that quarterback loose and you just say, go sick 'em. Don't give him 1 to 2 reads. If it ain't there, sick him and go to work. Because I think the more he tries to make him play quarterback, like he may have played at Furman, or even the way Graham Mertz did, and I think we all should applaud Graham Mertz as Florida fans for what he gave the University of Florida, the way he conducted himself. I thought he played extremely well. I think a lot better than people thought he would. So, I did think that was a classy move by Napier. And obviously, if you're a fan of football and Florida football, you should appreciate what Graham Mertz did. But we are here at the DJ Lagway show. And I think that's what a lot of people thought we would get. And now it's here. So,
yeah, like you said, that's what people wanted. And, of course, the next line, well, careful what you ask for. But in a way, just from a journalist standpoint, it's great because it's a great story. Mm-hmm. Win or lose, this is now we're you're hitching your wagon to the is he a superstar? He may be, but it would be a storybook thing if this kid is all that and he learns fast and he beats Kentucky and somehow they beat one of the next 4 and beat FSU. I mean, you were talking about, will Billy be around? I that's why I think this game is so pivotal, because if they lose this, they're 3-4 going into that 4-game gauntlet. And, you can easily see him come out of that 3-8 or 4-7. And I think that may be too much to keep him around next year. Mm-hmm. But, so this is, I think, and funny, every week's like the biggest game, but I truly think this one is. Right. Because if you go into that Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss thing, with a 3-4 record, it's just, I mean, I'm saying 500, you can make a case for him, but if that's the case, I mean, it's really going to be hard to keep him around next year.
Well, the thing I think is we talk about numbers. Yeah. My thing is the $27 million. Not that they don't have it, but you don't want to necessarily pay it.
Yeah.
And, that would be the one. And I think that's maybe the mistake they made with Dan Mullen, was they didn't give Dan Mullen time to tear it down and then build it back up. Maybe that last year. Maybe it would have been hard to find people, but at least you make the effort. Maybe somebody on the staff surprises you by their ability to come in, call play. Not that he needed to change offensive coordinators, but on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe up front they needed to make some adjustments and things like that. But I think that now with Lagway and going forward, yeah, I mean, there's really not much except for the fact that I think maybe this year might not be the indictment, but I wrote in my article, I think Napier in the last 3 years has had a football team that was capable of winning 7 to 8 games, but he's failed to do that. And I think that's what is going to be the indictment is, for all the talent that he had and things like that, he just never could get it done, and with a team that, I think the first year he should have won 9. I think last year they should have won 8. And this year, I think he had, if he wins last Saturday, wins this Saturday, I think they get 6 in. And now you're looking at going to a bowl game, going 7-6. And you can say, okay, we got something to build on. But those opportunities have slipped away. And now, Rob, here we are again.
Well, you've got to look at a football team, a program, like a mutual fund or a hedge fund. You've got a money manager. You got the guy, there's famous money managers. We all know them. But, you sell a few positions in there. You do window dressing at the end of each quarter. But you don't like making wholesale changes frequently. You'll incur a lot of capital gains. You'll incur a lot of ordinary tax gains. You want steady process. That's what you want. And I think the best coaches, there's 2 things I've noticed about them. Well, 3. One is that they're still mad as hell when they're up 56-7 with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter about stupid mistakes, because they're like, I know it may not matter to you right now, but in another game when it's real close, it will.
Don't get us beat. Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's it. Number 2, the only easy day was yesterday philosophy. Okay. Let's celebrate. Let's have fun. And then the third one is, God, have fun. Smile. Your body language, when you are stressed out looking and you're just absolutely at the end of your rope, your players pick up on that. You're dealing with 18 to 23-year-olds. God bless. I mean, I can tell you, because I got kids that age. Now they're in their 24 and above now, but man, you got to keep your calm. But you've also got to say, hey, you know what the greatest, my friend Maury Gaston, when he turned 16, he asked his dad if he could drive from Sylacauga, Alabama to the Auburn, Georgia game in Athens. He said, well, son, his dad was a pharmacist. He goes, let me think about that. The next day he said, son, I believe in you. I'm going to let you do it. He did. He drove to Athens for the Auburn game, and several people from Sylacauga saw him. And back in the days of payphones, guys called. But that was a leap of faith. At some point, you've got to trust people around you. And if you're micromanaging them and pencil whipping them, it doesn't get you anywhere. Florida, again, there's a lot of schools like this. You got to work the hell out of these guys and have an identity. And you know what you do when things aren't going well? Get back to the basics. Run the ball, get physical, get tough. Because toughness outlasts weakness 8 days a week.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's I think that's got to be the answer. And as long as the defense is playing better, I think they could find something to hang their hat on and at least keep them in football games if Lagway maybe was the struggle.
Yeah. I mean, a week ago, we had no confidence in this defense. Now, which has been, just the Achilles heel for as long as as long as any of us has been alive, but no, just for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been hopeless.
Right.
And I think they proved something. Although I don't think, as we've been talking, I don't think Tennessee is all that they made up to be. But
right.
But they definitely made a leap in that off week that I think was legit. But I mean, Rob's right. They got to get the running game going this weekend just to take some pressure off Lagway, Because if they know he's going to throw, then he's got, they're in trouble.
Right.
So,
Well, I think that, I mean, it just gives you the opportunity to tee off and really pin your ears back. And that's never a good thing. I mean, you want to keep a defense off balance. You want to give them different looks and things like that. I think that, I don't know. I mean, do you think that, from what it sounds like, Montrell Johnson may not be a long-term injury, but it could be something that at least this week he may not be available. So,
you got to become sort of like read the vibes with and everybody else, because they're so secretive about those things. But the vibes tell you, and just looking at the way he was on the sideline and stuff like that, I would be really surprised. And that's a worry spot, because you don't know if Trayon Webb's going to be back.
Right.
And
now they're down to at least two backs, maybe three if they use Daniels.
So you're looking at true freshman, handing out the true freshman backfield back there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Jacoby Jackson being the JUCO guy, I mean, he's played some meaningful minutes, but they're starting to thin out, and arguably was one of the better position units on the team going forward. So that's something that it'll be interesting. But
get Shamari DK back there. The guy's got the moves, as we finally saw.
He does. Yeah. It was good to see that, because I kind of been beating the DK drum, and there were people that were talking about our receivers couldn't get open, things like that. I think Badger, DK, and obviously Wilson, some of those guys, and even the ball that, I mean, it's unfortunate, because the ball that Mizell kind of tried to one hand, if he puts that on him, he probably scores. Which was just a basic, speed out. So I think that's one of the things. But guys, before we get out of here, next week we got the off week. We're going to do a little something different. Maybe talk a little women's basketball. Maybe have one of the guests on, as they're starting to begin their season, Kelly Ray Finley and some of the others. But until then, we got football. So, looking at this weekend, what do you think awaits the Gators against Kentucky?
I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. Just because this will be the last chance, I think I can say this till late November. I think Florida's going to pull it out. Just a home crowd and all that, and I'll drink the DJ Kool-Aid. Have a couple of sips and go with it, and think that they'll pull it out. Probably maybe 20-14, something like that.
Right. Well, Billy made me look bad too. That's what else I was upset about, because I went out on a limb and I picked them to beat Tennessee, and I had it going for a minute. And
they should have. Like I said, I mean, I think Florida was a better team.
Absolutely. Rob, what do you think?
I think Florida wins 22-16. I've had a pretty good read on this team lately. I had them to cover last week. I thought the game would go to the last series, and it did. It's weird watching these games, because I'm trying to be objective. I got Vols around me, Alabama people, Auburn, and Gators. But I think DJ Lagway is so physically gifted, and y'all are around him. And David, I'm just curious, is he in control of that locker room? Is he a vocal kind of guy? Because he has so much talent. He throws the ball. It looks like he's throwing a softball or a grapefruit. His hands are so big. He's a special player. He can pull Florida out of the abyss of hell. He's that good. I think he is.
I think the players genuinely have a confidence in him.
Okay.
Much more so than, if you'd have just taken it. I mean, they're going to say they do, even if they were putting, a kid from
I think it's genuine.
Yeah, but
I think
it's legit, because I think he has cultivated that from the start when he came here in spring, and he's gone on, sort of like Mertz. He's very smooth and slick, and slick has a bad connotation, but and same with Mertz. He looks like guy's a politician. Well, being a politician is not a bad trait, especially if you're a QB and building relationships like that. And and I think that they do have a lot of faith in him and they also realize that they got to rally around the kid too, and help him out as much as possible.
Absolutely, and I don't think, and in some ways, don't handcuff him. Like somebody said, let him throw the ball on first down. Let him, what you did against Tennessee. Unfortunately, to the pick. But I mean, just really let him kind of go out there and do his thing. I mean, and that's before we get out of here. But that's one of the things I think that he really has to focus on, and hopefully they give him enough of a package that he has options that because he looks like he's able to check and change things. I mean, I haven't seen anything that lends itself to think that he doesn't, that he can't check in and out of different looks and things like that. So, I think that'll be key. But before we leave, I want to talk about our one of our longest standing sponsors, Renstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers for the questions of the day, proven clinical trials in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, fibromyalgia, and other ailments. Renstar Medical Research, for sure. Definitely appreciate them. Well, gentlemen, we have solved all of Florida's problems in an hour and 6 minutes or so. But no, I mean,
people solve the world's problems.
Yes.
No, let's stay away from
David.
that. Look, that'll get you in trouble. But no,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I think we've got a lot to look forward to. If anything, the game has increased in its intrigue with, and you'll have a lot of people showing up to the ballpark to see what Lagway can do. I mean, you talk about National Gatorade Player of the Year, somebody that I think has endeared himself to the Florida fan base early, and people are going to show up. Plus, it's homecoming, so you have a lot of people coming back to UF to take it all in. I definitely know there's some reunions going on, things like that. So it'll be interesting. Mr. Whitley, you got anything special cooking, or just sticking to the script?
Same script, although just found out about 7:00 tonight that Graham Mertz will be speaking tomorrow. So
okay,
that'll be interesting, because as you said, that he, if he came here to redeem himself, mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rob, who you got tomorrow?
Yeah, well, we got Jordan Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia, Jake Wembley, ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive, Jackson, Mississippi, covering all things in Mississippi, and then all these numbers and matrices that he puts together for the SEC. Makes a lot of sense, the how and the why. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Vince Ferrara from Knoxville, the Sports Animal. We will cover all 16 SEC schools. I'll just throw this. Florida beats Kentucky. I don't give a damn what Kentucky is ridden, but losing to Kentucky, 3 years in a row? They don't lose to Kentucky at Florida. 4. You beat Kentucky, you are turning a corner, because you can't lose to programs like that when you're at Florida. Sorry, Kentucky, but that's just the way it is, okay?
Right.
That's the canary in the coal mine that you got problems. So let's go get the canary, go Gators, and I think that it'll be 22-16 Florida when the game is over. Gators win.
Right. Read him in the Gainesville Sun. David Whitley, Rob Browne of SEC Sidelines. We appreciate you all being with us tonight. For having me. Great dialogue. Appreciate your comments, and we'll see what happens. We'll talk to you guys on Thursday, Orange or Blue Bloods Thursday with Ben Troop, myself, Franz Beard, and I think tomorrow night we have Ali Peak Wilbur and the great David Moulton. Big fan of David Moulton. So tune in tomorrow. Tune in Thursday. Good night, folks.
Adios, guys.
Good night, guys.